In this video I would like to talk about God, evil, and the subconscious or the unconscious. And I will talk about the story that I mention in a lot of my videos. In August 2018, I had an experience in which I entered the mind of what I called God. Namely, I identified with the whole of reality. I believe that I became the consciousness of the whole of reality, and that reality, whatever exists, existed because of my consciousness. And this did not happen randomly. It was the result, it had been the result of an intellectual and spiritual process which had lasted 2 years. For 2 years, between August 2016 and August 2018, I had done nothing but read books, watch videos, think, meditate, reflect, gather knowledge, and the result is that what I call my God experience, when I identified with God. And if it's not a proper word, I don't know what is. And I envisioned that we, wherever there's a we were a gigantic cosmic brain that's just a representation, that each individual consciousness, each thinking consciousness anywhere, was a neuron of God, a part of this cosmic brain, and the whole interconnected conscious mind was the real God, so to speak, and I had just become aware of the broad picture. And I imagined that the people that I had encountered in my intellectual and spiritual journey and development were the most enlightened, the most awakened parts of the cosmic brain. And I talked and thought through representations, through images, to try to explain to myself what I was experiencing. And I imagined that the enormous mass of people all over the world were some sort of the sleeping neurons. They were the sleeping parts of the brain, and what we call the deep state, the scheming with the CIA, high finance, the secret agency, all that, the deep state was the subconscious of God. And in one night, when I had this cognitive experience, I became the root of all evil, because I thought of myself not as I believe that I was a singular individual, but it was my mind, and the mind is immaterial. I thought of my mind, my highest mind, my highest self, so to speak, as being the cause of reality. And since there is evil in reality, I thought of myself as being the cause of evil. And I said to myself, I am all the criminals, all the terrorists, all the rapists, all the pedophiles, all the torturers, all the evil people in the world. I am them, or they are a part of me. They are an aspect of me. And when I had this thought, I thought about this for a few hours, a few days maybe, and eventually I forgot, or I collapsed, or I denied. And honestly, there are many things for which I feel guilty in my life, but I don't feel guilty for having collapsed intellectually, for having refused this thought, because it was such a trauma, a traumatic experience, and if I'm honest, I still haven't recovered from this experience, because 3.5 years later I keep talking about this and thinking about this almost every day, and I probably won't ever recover, because you cannot recover from such a traumatic experience. And I know today that I, whoever is the I who speaks, I will have at some moment a mental breakdown, because I will be confronted by my subconscious, and I will collapse mentally, physically, and And when I think about myself, the individual that I identify as myself, when I try to think about my conscious evil, the consciousness of the evil within me, I have said in some of my videos that in my intellectual development, I have admired people like Alfred Rosenberg, Hitler, Savitri Devi, William Pierce, the most radical German and eventually white nationalists. So this has been a part of my development, and when I admired these people, I did not see the evil in them. In my view, they were the good guys. So I was blind and blinded. And there is a part of myself in which I still admire them, a part of me. And the question of evil and God, to my knowledge, there are 3 theologians who acknowledged or believed or tried to prove or envisioned that evil was a moment, a part of God. And these thinkers are Jakob, Böhme, Hegel, and Philip K. Dick. There are maybe others, but in their writings, they express the idea that evil is not separate from God. It's not the devil versus God, although that's how things are represented, but that evil is an aspect of God. It's within God. This is what Hegel calls negativity, the negative. And the way I represent myself, I may be deluding myself. If I try to identify with a God which had evil within him, I would imagine that what I would try if I were this God, to transcend the inner negativity through art. And the way I represent myself, this attempt to transcend an inner negativity through an artistic expression. There are 2 artists, many, but 2 that I think about the most. It's Eminem and Lady Gaga. Eminem has darkness and negativity and a part of evil within him, and this aspect of Eminem is what he himself calls Slim Shady. And Eminem is not just Slim Shady, he's Marshall Mathers and Eminem, he has many aspects, but Slim Shady in his music is an attempt to transcend his own inner darkness and negativity and conflicts and violence and evil in an aesthetic form. And Lady Gaga is an artist who is tormented. She has darkness within her. Every human, because in my view every human is made in the image of God, and she tries to transcend her own darkness through artistic expression. And another illustration, the movie The Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan. The Joker is a terrifying villain. But the story of the movie is that this terrifying evil character is balanced by Harvey Dent and Batman and Lieutenant Gordon and the citizens of Gotham eventually. So this evil aspect cannot be eradicated, but it can be balanced by other aspects. And so the way I envision God and evil and the subconscious is that, in my view, God has to battle and to struggle against his own subconscious. And what we call evil in the world is the manifestation, the exteriorization of God's subconscious. And why is there darkness or evil or negativity within God? Why would there be? Because as I envision what we call God, God is the entity which extracted itself. We cannot speak of a him yet. It's not extracted himself, because as I envision the process, maybe at the very beginning, I'm not sure that one can speak of a beginning, but that's a representation that there was a primordial void, a primordial nothing, and a will extracted itself out of nothing, out of maybe the primordial abyss, the void. And this will, which in German philosophy is called the Ungrund, the Urgrund, the Abgrund. It's not God yet. It's not a subject. It's a blind impulse. And this, I'm not sure that it's true, but that's how I try to represent myself, the bringing forth of the world and of God himself. This blind impulse eventually becomes conscious, and this self-consciousness is maybe what we call God. And there is, I think, I don't know, but there might be darkness, probably, darkness and negativity within this primordial abyss. And now I talk about myself, the one that I identify as myself. My whole life has consisted in discovering who I am or what I am. And by very definition, I cannot know what my subconscious is before becoming conscious of my subconscious, before discovering and identifying my subconscious. So I know that I am not who I think I am, because my knowledge of myself is limited. I can only discover who or what I am. And my life as an empirical individual and as a mind embodied in this empirical individual is a process of self-discovery, self-revelation, and I will share in the description the kind of songs that express the state of my soul as I am making this video, and these songs express how I feel inside. And the idea is that evil might be, in psychological, psychoanalytical terms, the subconscious or the unconscious of God. And God has to conquer his own evil and to make the subconscious conscious, to make peace with evil, to negate the negative, to abolish evil. That may be the task of God. That's what I had to say.